Morning, everyone. I'm just monitoring the waiting room. People, let them get settled. Welcome this morning. Most of you I don't see yet, but I see your names. So I'm assuming you're out there with us. And Heidi's coming. Anybody? Great. Well, good morning. How are you? Everyone hear and see okay? Is everyone comfortable? Make yourselves at home. And why don't we call the meeting to order? I'm going to continue to monitor lightly the waiting room here, but I'd like to say good morning and would like to ask you all to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me get our flag set up here. Okay. All right. Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops. All right. Okay. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Trying to find my materials here, and we'll get started. Okay. So why don't we take a quick roll call? We have many members here. I think the way that would make it faster for Ms. Montez is if we can travel around our windows here and say good morning and say our names and the schools we're here to represent. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcus Vance, Executive Director, Special Education for Ventura Unified.
I don't know if we're all on the same order, but I'm Heidi Trevisan with Foothill. Heidi with Foothill.
Carrie Neely from Special Education.
I'm John Veneration. I'm an OT assistant for Ventura Unified.
Michelle Haslam with Buena High School.
Maritza Morales, occupational therapist.
Maria McQuarrie, occupational therapist for Ventura Unified School District.
Ashley Pope, representing Elmhurst.
Jenna White, Elmhurst.
And I'm Rogelio Ramirez, district translator.
Okay, and with us also this morning is Miss Navarro with Sheridan Way. Yeah. And I believe I see Connie White out there with data.
Good morning, Dr. Cortez, Ed Services, Ventura Unified. So nice to see you all.
And I'm Sarika, and I'm an OT.
Thank you very much. I think we got everybody. If someone wasn't called or didn't get a chance to introduce themselves, please, by all means. So just a quick reminder to our own committee members that this meeting is being streamed on the internet. So please be mindful of the information you choose to volunteer. And to our YouTube watchers who may be joining us for the first time, it occurred to me that CDAC may be unfamiliar, and I'd like to give a quick description of what our CDAC is. Our CDAC is an advisory committee, Special Education District Advisory Committee, that contributes parent voices and feedback to the work the district does. And this is done through collaboration among parents, school sites, and district administration, helping to inform the development of practices and meet the needs of all learners. by providing the community with insight into the special education process and broadening of awareness of available resources beyond our schools for our families. And our site representatives have a responsibility to bring information to and from their school communities in order to foster district-wide connectedness. So thank you for joining us. If this is your first time or your third time, fifth time, we're happy to have you with us. So moving on to our items on our agenda under our information and discussion session, an update on our CDAC communication system. You'll recall at our July meeting that the committee had reached consensus that we would like to, or that they would like to be included in communication from the district in order to highlight the committee membership to their school communities and provide a way to be contacted to interact. And we talked over our options, and the committee settled on providing an email address of their choosing for us to include in our Parent Square communications under our CDAC committee and our special education items. After that meeting, I sent a link out to everyone to a form where committee members could list their email addresses that they wanted to use as their CDAC rep contact information. And that was sent on July 30th and again on August 3rd. And so far, we've only received one response. And we now have our Parent Square up and running. And so I'd like to kind of revitalize that effort. Did everyone receive those links, or were there any issues with accessing the link?
You're talking about the special ed survey that was sent out, Marcus?
It was the CDAC email addresses survey that was sent that we wanted to collect the selected email addresses from the committee in order to then use for our communication.
And you only got one from all of us?
I got one response so far from our Sheridan Way representative. So
maybe I didn't.
So, yeah, I mean, again, as Dr. Cortez mentioned last time, we're all everyone's getting hit with the fire hose of communication as we're leading up to things. So it's very possible that it was lost in value. So my plan is to resend it today, and hopefully we'll be able to communicate in that way and watch for it, and we'll get back on track with that.
Mr. Konias, just from my understanding, this is the email that we're soliciting from CDAC members who are interested in providing that so that other special education families on their sites have a way to communicate, and they can get more information in their role as a representative. I think it was maybe, was it Natalie maybe who kind of brought up that issue a couple agendas ago, and we were looking for a solution? Just making sure I'm tracking. Yep,
that's what we're referencing here. And thank you for clarifying too. It's not a mandatory thing, but it's that it was expressed and reaffirmed by the committee that that was something they were interested in. So I'll resend that link today, and we will, as I said, revitalize that effort. Okay. The next item on our agenda for our information and discussion section is a presentation on school-based occupational therapy. And we have not our entire team, but we have the majority of our occupational therapy team here with us this morning, and they have prepared a presentation to give you all an overview of what occupational therapy is and what the educational applications are, and answer any questions you might have. I'll turn it over to them.
Sarika, I think you're still muted.
Yeah,
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Let me get my agenda up. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarika, and I am one of the occupational therapists here at VUSD. We are a team of 6, Maritza, Maria, Sandra, Daniela, and John. And we provide occupational therapy services to a little over 30 plus schools and programs and many students. So, what is occupational therapy? Occupational therapy focuses on helping people participate in the meaningful activities they need and want to do after an injury, disability, or other health condition. It uses a holistic approach to look not only at why a client's participation and activities has been impacted, but also at the client's roles and environment. Treatment strategies include wellness, promotion, rehabilitation. The occupational therapy professional assists the clients in regaining function or adapting to changes by assessing and addressing all aspects of recovery, not just the physical. Occupational therapy and IDEA. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is a 4-part piece of American legislation that ensures students with a disability are provided with free appropriate public education, FAPE, that is tailored to their individual needs. So overall, the goal of IDEA is to provide children with disabilities the same opportunity for education as those students who do not have a disability. As members of a multidisciplinary educational team, occupational therapists share in the decision-making process regarding how to meet the educational needs of their students. Maritza.
Actually, me.
Oh,
I'm sorry, guys. I hear a lot of feedback in the background, like a TV is on. Can somebody turn on the TV because it's very distracting for the translation? Thank you.
So what makes a student eligible for school services? In school-based practice, OT support a child's ability to gain access to and make progress in the school curriculum. OT's purpose in a school setting is to support a student's engagement and participation in daily occupations, which include activities of daily living, education, pre-vocational work, play, rest, leisure, and social participation. So this is a definition from the American Occupational Therapy Association that all occupational therapists abide by. So a student might benefit from OT if she is having significant difficulties in classroom performance as impacted by curriculum, educational environment, and abilities. However, simply having needs in the areas of sensory or motor skills does not mean a student requires therapy. And an example of this is we may have a student that shows some weakness with their hands, but they can still write, they can still access the curriculum in the classroom. So just because they're having some weakness, they could even have like rheumatoid arthritis, but they are still able to write. We wouldn't necessarily be providing services for that particular student. Eligibility for school services. In order to receive therapy, a student must first be eligible for special education or qualify under Section 504 ADA. All requirements for eligibility must be met within this framework. Both the American Occupational Therapy Association and the federal legislation focus on improvement and functioning and not serving goals beyond the capacities of the individual. So once a student has been found to be eligible for special education,
You appear to be frozen, Maria.
It looks like we might have lost her. I can just continue with the slide.
Okay, go ahead, John. Thank you.
So once a student has been found to be eligible for special ed or Section 504, a listing of all his or her needs which cannot be met by the regular school program must be made. These become the special education needs, and needs in the areas of sensory motor skills, special physical adaptations, or similar areas that are interfering with the student's educational performance and which cannot be met by the regular or special ed teacher or other specialists may require OT involvement. Since educational goals are of primary importance for students in the school setting, the amount of time and service often differ from services delivered in the clinical setting. So depending on their needs, students may be seen by a therapist as little as once or twice a year to update the school program, or as much as once a week to work on specific skills that affect classroom functioning. A critical feature of OT in the school setting is the interaction between the therapist and the educational staff. Therapists do not work in isolation in the school and must integrate the therapy program and work as members of the student's educational team to achieve educational outcomes. So this is a table that shows the difference between medically and educationally necessary therapy. So there are a lot of differences in, for example, with eligibility, someone may be medically shown, as Maria was already mentioning, that they may need OT outside of school, but educationally, they may not necessarily need educationally focused therapy if whatever their condition is does not necessarily impact their access to learning. So looking forward to when students do qualify for therapy, direct service delivery involves treatment by the OT or CODA occupational therapy assistant working directly with the child, either in a pull-out setting or within the classroom environment. And then consultation involves sharing knowledge with teachers or other team members depending on the identified need. So they may not be necessarily working directly with the child in a pull-out setting, but we can communicate with teachers or other service providers. Consultative services have been proven equally effective for some students and have increased teachers' appreciation of OT's contributions to education. And then Maritza is going to go over some of the specifics of what the educational impact of OT.
Okay, so what are we looking at? So we as OTs are looking at what additional supports within the scope of our practice does this student require beyond what is available in their classroom to increase their access to and participation in their educational curriculum. So let's look at some examples of what an OT may support within the educational day. So we're going to look at possible concerns related to the curriculum and participation in the educational context. And we'll look at examples of participation goals and outcomes related to the child's needs within the educational context. And then we'll just give a few examples of what body functions and structures and performance skills or educational modifications we're looking at. So a big one for our students is completion of written work, as well as the reorganization of materials in the classroom. So when we look at this demand for our students, we're looking at, can they use tools in the classroom appropriately? Are they able to use their scissors, manage their pencils, manage their crayons, use a keyboard as appropriate for their classroom setting? Are they able to keep their materials steady? Are they able to follow the routines? Can they tolerate the sensory demands of the classroom, such as water, glue, foam, paint, sound, light, movement, all of those different aspects. We're looking at, can they attend to the classroom instruction? Can they keep their belongings organized? We're looking at motor skills, visual motor skills. Can they copy the letters and numbers and shapes accurately and appropriately within the needs of their classroom? And then when we break down those skills, we're looking at we're analyzing what are the pieces, what are the barriers, what are the pieces that student need some assistance with, some additional support? Is it their grasp? Is it their strength? Is it their coordination? Is it their posture and core strength? Is it sensory modulation? Is it ocular control and visual motor skills? So we're looking at how each of those pieces are impacting their demands for their classroom. We also look at participation in leisure and playground activities. So is that student able to access the playground appropriately? Can they perform the activities with their class? Are they able to navigate the school environment on grass, on the concrete, get up and down the ramps? Perhaps if there's stairs that's required, can they access their classroom? Those kinds of things. Are they able to move around their classroom without bumping into tables or chairs? Are they able to engage in sports or games or hobbies or other structured activities that their classroom setting requires? And again, we're looking at what are those performance components that they need to be able to have those skills ready to go. Is it their strength, their balance, their coordination, their stability, their sensory modulation, motor planning, those different factors and pieces that allow them to participate in their educational day. So OTs look at self-care as well. Within the school setting, it's, can the student manage their packages? Can they manage their containers? Are they able to open that glue bottle? Are they able to pull the marker caps off? With some students, we do work on managing clothing if it's something like for toileting that they need, or as they get older and they're needing to change out for PE, are they able to do those activities as required by their classroom setting? Is that student able to feed themselves, open the Ziploc bags, those type of activities? And again, we're looking at, do they have the motor control? Do they have the fine motor skills? Do they have the postural control? And do they have the visual motor skills? Those same components that we're looking at in the various activities. With students, we're also looking at pre-vocation and secondary transition. Are those students able to, as they get older, are they maintaining their attention? Are they being able to identify stressors and utilize their strategies that they need, asking for help when they need it? Are they able to understand or develop an understanding of basic safety precautions? Are they able to access, again, all parts of the campus, navigate the campus, perhaps navigate a map, both on campus and kind of starting to think about the greater community as we help prepare for those transition skills. Again, we're looking at sensory modulation, postural stability, fine motor control, visual motor, those key components that allow our students to participate in these classroom demands. So in each of these examples, the therapist is analyzing many factors, including fine motor skills, visual motor skills, gross motor skills, sensory processing and regulation skills, and some cognitive attention and multi-step sequencing to determine how we can best support that student's access to and participation in their educational curriculum. So we want to thank you for having us. And at this point, we'd like to see what questions we can help address.
I have one. How have you been able to transition this into distance learning?
So moving forward in the fall, we are going to be working on the virtual therapy telehealth model. So we will be using live Zoom sessions with our students. So a few different things we're working on. One is we're putting together packets of physical materials that we'll be able to send home for students, and we'll have those same materials with us at our distance site so that we can participate together with each other on the activities, and we'll know that that student has those tangible materials that we need them to readily available. And so that's the way in the fall distance learning is going to look like for OT. As well as, I think you mentioned, the consultation and collaboration with the classroom teachers and the rest of the team involved with each student.
And so the school year has already started. Do you have a timeline for like what in the fall means, like when?
Services for occupational therapy are going to begin next week. And in terms of timeline of getting those materials out, we're working on getting that. We're very close to getting them out, but we don't yet have an exact timeline of when those will be coming home.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question. If there is a student struggling with distance learning, I know a lot of the students are not having an easy go of that with that screen connection. Is there a strategy laid out for those students that are having a difficult time with the distance learning?
Yes, there is. Our primary, we really want to be able to see the student, and the best way right now through distance learning is through the Zoom. But there are other options that we've thought about. We are going pencil and paper. We can put packets of materials that they can work at their own pace, and then we still would be checking in if it is easier to communicate with the parent, and then kind of they can give us feedback, and we would still be communicating to see how the student is doing and how we can best provide the services. So.
I'd like to add, we're also working with the case managers to find out if the student is having trouble across the board with distance learning. Is there some piece that we can support with OT, whether it's a particular helping figure out a particular schedule or providing activities for certain sensory breaks, or if there's a certain piece of equipment that perhaps that student needs in order to be able to have a little bit more sustained attention for the computer tasks. Those are also things that we're working on for those students that are having challenges with distance learning. But as Maria said, our primary goal is to be able to have the face-to-face even in this distance setting. And then if that is not able to working with the family and the case manager, to then look at potentially doing paper packet kind of activities with check-ins.
Okay.
I know at the last CDAC meeting and also at the school board meeting, there was talk about therapy centers and having in-person therapy. I know, I don't know if that's more of a question for Marcus, but I think it's related.
Mute. There we go. Okay. Yes, the only in-person activities we're authorized for right now is the assessments. So the triennial assessments, the initial assessments for special education, all instructional delivery and therapy delivery and things like that right now are still, we're not authorized for in-person, but we are providing over through a teletherapy model.
Who's in charge of that authorization? Is it the state or the county or the district? Like who?
I can speak to that. Hi.
Go ahead, Dr. Cortez.
Sure. So the state just put out California Department of Health guidelines for districts that are still on the watch list to be able to provide services to what's called a small cohort. Many of our special education students' classes would be considered a small cohort. So that first step was us getting the guidelines to be able to do that. The next step would be to review and analyze that here at the district level, check in with the other superintendents in the county, check in with our own local public health, and see next steps on submitting a plan or not. So first, the state had to give us that guidance, Ms. Pope, and we just received that this week. So now our job is to analyze that not only within our district, but across the county. Was that the question?
Yeah, and I saw the guidance that came out, but also a few weeks ago, the governor talked about special education and kids that can't learn in an online format, and that there's, really no reason to not bring small cohorts together at that time. So I understand the guidance coming down and everything, but based on everything I've seen from the state, it seems like it should be something that we can push through statewide. It's just more the local. So I was wondering if that didn't kind of answer the question, the county and other.
No, I think you're right. Yes, the governor mentioned it a few weeks ago, but the guidance wasn't released till this week. Honestly, the days are kind of running together, so I don't know if that was Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, but it was this week. So then taking that guidance, I think it's called cohort or small cohort guidance. It doesn't just apply to special education cohorts; it applies to other cohorts as well. Now it is at our level, the district level, to review, analyze the guidance, And again, check in with the rest of the superintendents in the county, as has been our practice that Dr. Rice kind of explained the last time he was here. And that's where we're at right now. So you're correct that state has already given kind of like the go ahead and put out the guidance, but the go ahead is to review that at the local level. And that's where we're at in the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I should add one thing. I'm sorry. I should add that we have said to our bargaining teams from the beginning that we're very interested in bringing back our special education students who need the most support as soon as we possibly can. We've said that very transparently. You've heard it on board meetings even back in July. And so I'm hopeful that those conversations, not only internally with management, but also with our bargaining units, will begin at some point. I couldn't give you a timeline for that, but that has been a desire expressed by the Board of Education and staff, and to some degree from the teachers through a survey, an anonymous survey. So we're still like in the very beginning, but that's been a stated goal, and I want to say that.
Thank you. I'm looking through my scroll. Oh, Heidi.
Hi, thank you. John, it's very nice to see your face. It's been a while. My daughter had the pleasure of working with John for many years. He's a great CODA. So my question is, my daughter and maybe some of the other children represented on this panel does not get school-based OT anymore. But I definitely see the value of OT. And I was curious for the OTs here, if you could pick 3 ways that we all might best support our student at home, even if they're not getting school-based OT. If your child was doing distance learning, and perhaps some of you have children that are, can you think of a few things that you recommend we all put in place at home? Maybe something we might not otherwise think of. There's some obvious ones, but.
I think it may be obvious for some, but I think even personally as a mom as well, the thing that I've needed to remind myself is to set up a routine. I think our students really benefit from having a routine, having a schedule, knowing what's coming and knowing how long things are going to last. So whether it's, we're going to sit down and do our distance learning for this time and we're going to take a break and do this, I think that's really helpful that the students know what to expect and how to kind of help themselves manage things. I think having, if possible, a particular space set up where they know that they're going to this space and this space means it's a workspace. And within that, they have the supplies that they need, if at all possible, in easy reach. I think that's really helpful. And I think just also, everybody, we all individually know our children best. So really working with them and communicating what works best with their case manager as well, so that we can best set up what's going to be successful for them. So I think those are, for me, the 3, I'd say, best ways that parents can support their students during the distance learning time.
Thank you, Maritza.
And I would say that also just allowing them to giving them that time to play. They still in school when they were in the school building, they need their recess, they need that movement, allowing that, taking them outside, letting them play with chalk, taking them, it's hard, I know they can't play in the park in the playground, but taking them for a walk, just allowing them to be children and giving them those breaks, and giving them those toys. Like yesterday I got my son a Lego set. That's a great toy, and if they don't want to do like the pencil and paper, don't force them. Start with something that's going to work those same areas, but as a toy, with a toy. Don't force the we have to be writing. Start it as a game and then move to the academics.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Great question. Thanks for that. And thanks, team. Any other questions for our OTs here this morning? Carrie, do you have your hand up?
I do. I don't have a question. I just wanted to add that the parent guide to distance learning that our team put together last spring is still available on the district's website, and it has some great ideas in there for things such as self-regulation, organizational support, sensory and fine motor activities that parents can be doing at home during distance learning. So that's another great resource for ideas to look at.
It's very good, and it was it's on our website both in English and Spanish, and I sent it out to this committee after our last meeting in July. So if you didn't get that, it's available online, but I can resend that as well. Heidi, I'm sorry.
Marcus, did you guys move it? Because I think it is a fabulous document, but it was sort of buried in the bowels of a CDAC agenda, wasn't it?
In the bowels of the agenda. Phrase of the day. We did move it. We moved it to a more prominent location for the closure resources. It's there alongside information on Weave and distance learning and that sort of thing too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're redesigning and re-engineering the entirety of the website, and things are slowly transitioning to much more highlighted and prominent areas that for better accessibility.
Great, thank you.
Sulin?
Yes, I thought that report was also great, and I think it had a lot of good ideas. And I'm just kind of thinking outside of the box because some parents might be overwhelmed, obviously, and everybody is obviously very stressed out. But I don't know if maybe there's little video clips of that report that you can actually do a little video of here's an example of what we're saying. Here's an example of what it is, because I think that facilitates the process perhaps for parents. And I'm not saying the entire report, obviously, but maybe doing little illustrations of what that report has on a live, little replay so people can watch it on YouTube and be like, oh, okay, that's what it means. That's what they're talking about. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great idea, and that's something that we've been talking about for about a year, and we have just been kind of sidelined by the overhaul of our website, because what we want to do is vignettes, as it were, and informational type things. So that's something that we're looking forward in the future as well. So it's nice to hear that that's not just something that we think is a good idea. So thank you for that. Any other items for our OTs? I would like to thank the team, and I'd also like to take an opportunity to welcome Sarika, who is the newest member of our OT team. And it's likely, well, I don't know if it's her first presentation ever, but it's her first presentation in Ventura Unified. So we thank you for being here. We welcome you to the team, and we look forward to a good year.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, I'll excuse the OT members unless they would like to stay. They're not required to leave, but they may if they want to. As if I went by their office a couple of days ago, and you can barely walk because of all the the kits they're putting together for the individual families and things like that. So they're busy at work on those things too. So a lot of stuff underway, as you're all aware. So thank you guys. So moving to our next item on discussion is our update on special education service delivery during distance learning. We talked about a little bit of that, but I wanted to give you an update. Last time we talked about where we were in the process and what our goals were to achieve as we open for fall under these new circumstances, and primarily the circumstances that were announced very late in June, which moderately altered the course of our planning, but did not sideline or derail it. So where we are now going forward, and as Ashley highlighted, the school year has already begun. We're in an orientation period, and instruction will be beginning next week, and service delivery will begin next week. And what we can expect is live daily instruction and interaction with our teachers over the Zoom platform, live delivery of related services over the virtual platform as well. And that's, as we met here today, OT, but also speech therapy and PT and the other related services of that, that form. And our paraprofessionals will be in class during live Zoom teaching time, supporting our teachers and our students, and will be available to students during asynchronous times that occur during school hours over Zoom as well. And we're continuing to move forward with our in-person special education assessment scenario. We moved away from a regional type of center model that we had originally thought would be the plan. And what that means is dedicated sites around the district that are then the designated centers to come to and to conduct those assessments. But we've moved away from that just because of the volume of assessments that go with our special education processes, but also we've moved it to a site-by-site model, and the primary reason for that is the comfort level of our families. Going somewhere, you know, coming to their school in familiar surroundings with familiar people and knowing where it is and not have to plan and that sort of thing too much, just be able to make an appointment and engage in that process with our professionals and specialists. And right now, what we're doing is our psychologists and our principals are working together to identify spaces on each of their campuses that can be used for these assessments. And our health services and risk management departments are helping us compile all of the needed safety equipment, the PPE and the other equipment. And health services will be conducting trainings next week for staff regarding protocols, and a letter explaining the process for engaging in assessments will be going out to our families soon. And lastly, parents will be receiving distance learning plans. They already have begun to go out, and they are, as of late last night and this morning and on through today, are continued to be mailed out. Those will be arriving soon, and those are the plans that are reflective of each child's IEP that will list how services will be delivered during this temporary emergency, so that families can plan accordingly for receiving those services and engaging in instruction and that sort of thing. So those are the updates to some of the things we talked about last time. Any thoughts or experiences or questions on that at this time? Heidi?
Sorry, I always have questions. So I am positive that my daughter's logged on to all of her Zooms, which is a win, yay. But is there any requirement for special ed teachers to communicate with the parents whether their child is logging on and zoning out or not? Like, I would love to think that there's a standardized form that could tell special ed parents whether their child is engaging in this online platform. I do know that I thought initially that when teachers were taking attendance, they were not only counting faces on the screen, but making some kind of note as to whether children were just, you know, not participating at all in the online.
Whether or not they were just faces on the screen, is it? And right. That's what you're saying. The district-wide, there's an engagement component to the live instruction, and it reaches beyond special education, but it's for the entirety of the live instruction. I think possibly Dr. Cortez could add some context to that might help.
Yes, I can't. Right now, we're just documenting the type of live engagement, because the state says that live engagement can be a video conference, or it can be a phone call, or it can be an email, or it can be, so as we're easing into this, we're just using the feature that describes the type of engagement and whether the student participated or not. Is that a feature that's available to teachers to use to like describe the level of engagement? Yes, but it's not required at this point. And I think our goal right now is to get teachers comfortable with video conferencing. That's not something that many of them did a lot of during spring teaching, and very hopeful that they'll get comfortable with that soon. That was one of the goals of orientation. Next week, launching of Canvas and that curriculum and Seesaw, where it applies is kind of the main focus. And then doubling back with our teachers to figure out what will the tiers of support be. We know we want to focus on kids that aren't even showing up. Like that's our first level of intervention, especially if they haven't engaged in 3 or more days. The state says we're required to do that, and we would have wanted to do that anyways. But eventually we'll want to get so sophisticated into our tiers of support where we can not only track kids who are showing up, but the kids who are showing up but not necessarily participating. So I know that's not exactly a yes or no question, but we have the capability, we have the tracking materials. It's not part of our protocols as of yet because we're still kind of working on some of the.
All right, thank you. Especially I'm thinking I have the benefit of having an older child. I know some of the parents here have younger children, but unfortunately, I work out of the house and my husband works out of the house. So my special ed high schooler is left home alone every day. And as far as I know, she's logging on. I would hope that someone at the school would tell me if she's not. And hopefully someone at the school would communicate if she's logging on and then going to lie in her bed, like some high school kids might be tempted to do.
I may have had my own child decide that like there was once mom told him to get up, then mom didn't go back and check. Maybe he wouldn't be on a Zoom this week. So not this coming week, but the following week, you'll get attendance calls. So for example, if your child doesn't show up for the Zoom, you will get attendance calls for that to let you know your child missed. The other thing I would suggest is you can create an observer account in Canvas. I know that not everybody in this call has a student that participates in Canvas, but for those who do, you can get a parent observer account and you can see participation of your child in Canvas. So we'll be pushing that information out to parents soon as to how to do that. I think that's another way to kind of check for progress if that's what you're looking for, Heidi. And yeah, those calls will start. This next week, we're going to do more like there's some families that won't be able to live participate in the live teaching. They're either essential workers, or it just doesn't work with their schedule, or doesn't work for their particular child. And there's families that know right now those schedules just won't work for them. So we're trying to gather the names of those families so they don't get those daily calls, because that would be a significant nuisance to somebody who has to do all their work on the weekend, for example. So once we get the names of all the families who aren't able to do that, to pause the daily calls for them, then we'll start the daily call system. So yeah, I think it'll be not necessarily next week, but the following week, where I would have gotten a call from my kiddo who showed up to his first Zoom and then conveniently fell back to sleep, whatever that means. So yeah, thank you for the question.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts at this time? Okay. Okay.
Thanks for all the school supplies.
Yeah, you're referencing the pickup and the orientation activities that have been going on. I mean, during this orientation time, yeah, it's been quite an exciting time. Okay. So moving on to section 3, committee reports, concerns and successes from sites, quote unquote. At this time, I'd like to hear from any of our site representatives that have had interactions with their school communities and have anything to report. Ashley and then Sulin.
So the biggest thing that I've heard from mostly the little ones, like TK through, I don't know, 3rd grade or 4th grade, is that they're just having a really hard time with distance learning, period. Like for the most severe kids, distance learning just doesn't work for them. I think for my own son, when he sees like a face on a Zoom screen, he doesn't recognize that that's like his teacher and his classmates. So I think just keeping top of mind for this committee and as special education leadership in our district that there are many of our kids who are going to lose a lot of learning, and the best thing for them is to get back in person. So that's what I've heard and what I'd like to share. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, we're all very concerned and being very vigilant about the development of this whole thing. We feel the same way. Sulin, you had a hand? You're muted. There you go.
There you go. Yes. Well, we have a new principal at Will Rogers, Ms. Perez, and I was able to communicate with her yesterday and had a conversation. So I feel like it's a good thing that we have a principal now in place. She seems very proactive, so I think it's a plus side. And her background, also, I think coming from a psychology background, I think helps for our students. So the team is kind of working on a distancing learning plan. They're really trying to work on parents, what Dr. Cortez just mentioned, parents that are not logging in. Some of them are getting calls from our special education teacher. I have a few parents that are reaching out to me because my daughters are friends with their daughters, and they're a little lost. They are lost. They don't know when to log in. They don't check their Gmails. They don't check all the electronic, everything that you guys are doing, obviously, to communicate. It's not something that they use or they're not accustomed to. So I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind as educators, obviously, but district and your staff, unfortunately, it's going to have to get some hand holding on some of these cases. A lot of the parents are frustrated that they don't even know how to log in on an iPad, and they don't know how to log into all these 5 different requirements: Prodigy, Benchmark, Canvas, Google Classroom, school website. And that's very overwhelming for a lot of them. So I think if we can convey this to the entire staff, and I'm sure you guys have done this and you're doing an awesome job, but I just want to kind of emphasize this again, that there's going to be a lot of hand-holding required for a lot of these parents that are not showing up, calling them, say, hey, I don't see your kid logged in. Do you know where they're at? And it's not that they don't know. It's just that they don't have the time, some of them, to check, or they don't even know how to do it. So I think we need to be very cautious and top of mind that that's what's happening to a lot of our parents.
I can add that we have added every Wednesday, we're doing Mucho Más que Miércoles, which is a training in Spanish for Spanish-speaking families on the very, very basics of technology. It's designed for Spanish-speaking families, but it is bilingual. So if you have a family that you know of that could benefit from that, as long as they know how to get into Zoom, we're literally teaching them how to use the chat, showing them how to use an iPad, showing them how to use the Chromebook, and also the call center. It just takes the phone to be able to call into the call center to get step-by-step directions with a live person on how to support that. The call centers are open until 7:30 at night, and the call center is open on the weekends. So just putting that out there, so when you hear some of those concerns for families, you can be a point of connection to them.
Yeah, and I'm aware of that now. Like, I wasn't aware of this Wednesday program that you're talking about. I don't know if that's recent or something that's like up and coming, but
it's the second Wednesday that we've done it, and we'll keep going with it.
So how are parents being informed of that? Because like, I was aware of the hotline, obviously, through the Facebook posting, but how are we reaching to them to get even that message that is even a resource available for that?
Yeah, currently right now, Twitter, Facebook, and Parent Square is how those 3 pieces have gone out with regard to the call center and the Mucho Miércoles. Principals are also putting that in their newsletters and in their communications. It's on the website, but I think the Red de Comadre, talking to each other in person, is probably the best way to share that. I know that I get private Facebook messages from folks because they've seen some webinar or Facebook Live session, and they ask me for assistance, and I'm able to connect them with the call center. So there's lots of layers. That doesn't mean it's hitting all the marks. But I think the best advice you can give a family is the Facebook feed, which is updated even more regularly than the Twitter feed, and to make sure they're connected to Parent Square, because those pieces of communication go out pretty regularly on the bigger project. So
yeah, and I understand that, but what I'm saying, it's like I don't know what all the parents are or who the parents are unless they know me and they're already connected. So I'm saying this is where the front desk staff at each of the school sites needs to become that information piece for those parents, right? And if there's any way of putting that in a one sheet of paper, so when a lot of the parents are going to the office, and what I'm hearing, some of them are like, they're giving us something, but I don't know what to do. I'm still lost. They need a lot more hand holding. So I don't know if there's any way of creating some kind of form for them and mailing it out to them, or when they show up that the parents can pick it up, and at least it gives them those numbers in Spanish, because I understand about Facebook and it's a great tool, but your postings are not in Spanish right now, most of the ones that I'm seeing. So how are they even able to understand that?
They all translate. You click the Facebook translate button. But aside from that, I think your point's super well taken. We probably should check to make sure we have some paper bilingual flyers that refer to the call center and refer to the Mucho Más que Miércoles in our offices. And that's something that I can make a note of, because if you're not connected digitally and you're walking into a school, taking something that is brief and not pages and pages of directions would probably be helpful. So I think that's the point taken.
Thank you.
Heidi?
Since you brought up the call center, Dr. Cortez, I just wanted to applaud the district for filling that call center with the library media techs that lost their jobs. I thought that was brilliant. As a librarian myself, I can tell you that all librarians are really great at finding and disseminating information. And I thought that was a really, really wise choice to put librarians at the call center. So if you're wondering who's answering those phones, I don't know that they're all librarians, but many of them were the middle school library media techs that were displaced. I called there yesterday and had a great talk with Ms. Cook.
We're very, very proud of that group, and they're phenomenal. And it's really a wonder to want to pass by and watch, quote unquote, and overhear the work they're doing. It's really, really great. So thank you for highlighting that. Sue Lynn?
I just want to also, what Heidi said, they've really been really great. I've called several times and they're being fantastic. The great customer service, they're directing you right away, and they're doing an amazing job. So thank you for that.
It's good to hear. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to travel my squares for a moment. Is there anything else any of our representatives would like to share from their school communities? Not seeing.
Sure.
Oh.
Hi,
go ahead.
Buena right now, I think they're doing a pretty good job. They've spent this entire week getting the kids acclimated to the system, carefully guiding them through Canvas, carefully reminding them of their obligation to check their Gmail accounts twice a day. And I'm just really impressed at the very thorough job that they're doing, making sure that these kids are able to sustain that process on their own, because that was something that we were worried about, just between having our other kids having to acclimate as well. We haven't had necessarily to worry about our teenager because the teacher has been so thorough with checking in with them. As a matter of fact, just stopping by today at a distance so there can be like a little bit of facial recognition outside of that screen setting. So that little extra mile is really great. So, and she's doing that for all the students in that particular class. So, right now, it's so far so good. I'd like to work on doing the parent log, because it's sort of that same thing where I'm not connected to many of the parents that I don't know, and I know that there are privacy issues there. So that's something I'm dealing with directly with the teacher in terms of getting a list together, offering my information to the other parents if they want to reach out to me or start a sort of parent tree or whatever. But yeah, so far so good.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, Ms. Montez, have we received any public comment?
No, I've been monitoring my email and there are no public comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. A lot of exciting things happening in the district. I know we have back to school night coming up. Are we communicating that, Dr. Cortez? How are the parents being informed of those dates?
That should come directly from their principals with Zoom links to facilitate that. It'll be sort of a webinar style, and depending on the school, it might be broken down by grade span, just to accommodate the number of seats on a Zoom. But they will look to their principals to communicate those dates.
Thank you. Okay. Any other community events that anyone would like to highlight that are upcoming? Okay. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I thank you for your time today and the conversation, and it's always nice to see you. We will have our next CDAC meeting next month, and we'll update the calendar for that, and we'll come back together for updates and reports and discussions. So thank you very much. I feel like we have grown so much as a committee that we should have a trademark sign off, but we can come up with that as we develop. Looking forward to the fall, as you know, we discussed early when we began this committee of getting up and running, getting our site reps. We're still in need of some reps for some of our sites. And so if you are in communication with anyone else at your neighboring schools and might be interested, please spread the word. Also, moving forward now, we'd like to revitalize our efforts to fully solidify this community in the form of establishing the executive board piece of it with a chair and other officers and things like that. So in our upcoming meetings in this fall, we'll restart those discussions and those plans. And outside of that, on behalf of Carrie Newley and Dr. Cortez and the OT team and myself, I'd like to thank you, and let's keep the conversation going. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Great weekend. Bye.